No, you two are. Let me put
And if anyone at DOT have been.
That's not good.
Just the note from it.
We're in pretty good shape.
No, it's okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning and welcome to our March 9th meeting of the NJTPA. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome, is this on? Yeah. I'd like to welcome Huntington County Freeholder Zach Rich. Where are you? Welcome. Zach will be the new alternative voting member for our board, and thank you for joining us today. I take it Matt is up here today, right?
So you know where I am. I'll let you know shortly, Director.
As a reminder to all members, the microphones around the board table are very sensitive, and this meeting is being taped and webcast. I'd also like to note that Freeholder Charles Kenny, our third vice chair, is joining us by phone today. So welcome, Charles. Are you there?
Good morning, yes.
Okay. Is there anyone else that may be calling in? All right, thank you. The Open Public Meetings Act. So now to start this meeting, we'll ask Beverly Morris to read the Open Public Meeting Act. Hi, Beverly.
This is to advise that in accordance with the Open Publics Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been forwarded to the Newark Star Ledger, the Asbury Park Press, the Courier News, the Daily Record, the Home News Tribune, the Jersey Journal, and the New Jersey Herald. It was posted in the Essex County Hall of Records in Newark and on the bulletin board of the Lieutenant Governor in Trenton.
Thank you. Please join us in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. And Beverly, can you please do the roll call?
Bergen,
Present, I'm voting.
Essex,
Here.
Hudson,
Yeah.
Hunterdon,
Yes.
Jersey City,
Present.
Middlesex,
Here.
Monmouth,
Present.
Morris,
Here.
Newark,
Here.
Ocean,
Here.
Passaic,
Here.
Somerset,
Here.
Sussex,
Here.
Union,
Here.
Warren,
Here.
Governor's Office,
Here.
NJDOT,
Here.
NJ Transit,
Here.
Port Authority,
Here.
Citizens Representative. Madam Chair, we have 18 voting members present.
Thank you. Before I move on to the minutes, when someone makes a motion, I would appreciate if you identify yourself by who you're representing, the county or what have you. And I apologize for that, but I wear hearing aids. And if you say I make the motion and I'm not looking at you, I won't know who spoke. So I appreciate if we could do that. And I think it'll also make Beverly's life a little easier. So with respect to the minutes, are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the January 13 board minutes? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Ocean County Freeholder Jack Kelly will make the motion.
Thank you. And a second?
Everybody's afraid to do it now.
Okay, Passaic County Freeholder John Bartlett seconds.
Thank you. Any opposed or any people abstaining?
We have Hunter County will abstain, not in attendance.
Union County abstain.
Thank you. And you need to take a call?
You could do a blank. All those
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
minutes are approved.
Let's see, and I'd like to take this opportunity to read my report. I want to thank my fellow board members again for entrusting me with the position of chair. I'm honored to serve this board, and I look forward to working with all of you over the next 2 years. One of the things I admire about this board is our ability to work together in a bipartisan manner to get things done for our region. I have said that since the day I joined this board, which was over 6 years ago. In that spirit, I want to start by recognizing the board members who have agreed to serve on our new committee chairs and vice chairs. And they are, for the Project Prioritization Committee, Passaic County Freeholder John Bartlett, who will be the chair, and Warren County Freeholder Jason Sarnowski, who will be the vice chair. For the Planning and Economic Development Committee, our Ocean County Freeholder John Kelly will be chair, and our Somerset Freeholder Sarah Suey will be our vice chair. And for the Freight Initiatives Committee, Middlesex County Freeholder Charles Kenny, who is on the phone, will be the chair, and Sussex County Freeholder Joshua Hertzberg will be the vice chair. I thank all of you for your dedication to the board. The full membership list of committees was sent to you via email about 2 weeks ago and is included in your board handbooks today. As I mentioned at our meeting in January, everyone comes to this position with their own vision and approach, and I'd like to take a few minutes to discuss some of my top priorities for my term as chair. Our region depends on reliable and efficient transportation system. It's critical to attracting employers to our state and enhancing the quality of life by providing safe transportation to all of our travelers, regardless of their age, income, ability, or mode of choice. It's especially important that we pursue transportation options for older population and people with disabilities who have limited access to many travel modes, whether they live in an urban, suburban, or rural environment. The transportation system should also connect workers with jobs, but in some parts of our region, it doesn't happen. We need creative last-mile connections to get workers from transit stations to their places of employment, including services perhaps like ride-hailing apps. In some cases, we may need to look at expanding transit, particularly to outlying regions where manufacturing and other operations can find it very challenging to get workers to the site, especially if they are running shifts around the clock. As we prepare to update the NJTPA's long-range transportation plan next year, we'll be meeting to discuss these issues and more, like the role of autonomous vehicles and other emerging technologies and what they could do to play in this scenario. We're planning a board retreat in Morris County for early June, and we'll be sending out more details shortly. As we work on our plan update, safety will continue to be a top priority. This includes addressing critical infrastructure needs and focusing on ways to make our streets safer for at-risk users, especially people walking and bicycle riding. My term as chair, the NJTPA will keep working to reach more communities through our Street Smart New Jersey pedestrian safety program. Just yesterday, I saw someone literally blow through a crosswalk while there were people in the crosswalk. Just literally blew through and purposely looked the other way, as if I'm looking at to my right, I don't see who's on my left. I was just appalled by that type of activity while you're driving, and again, for the people that are walking in that crosswalk. So during my term as chair, we'll keep reaching, like I said, for the pedestrian safety programs. And we've partnered with more than 125 municipalities across the state already. As you know, New Jersey's pedestrian fatality rate is nearly double the national average, and we must continue to work to reduce that number. Another area I'd like to focus on is freight. As many of you know, Morris County has 2 freight rail lines, and we're home to a number of manufacturing companies. Goods movement plays a critical role not only in our county, but across northern New Jersey. As you'll hear shortly today, the board is acting on 2 freight concept development studies, one of which is in Morris County, which are helping to address critical freight needs in our region. In January, I attended the private sector freight roundtable discussion the NJTPA hosted as part of its long-range planning efforts. Some of the private sector top concerns included employee access to job sites and congestion at the port and on our roads. Congestion remains a major concern, not only for the freight sector, but also for the traveling public. Improving transit and supporting alternative modes, such as cycling and walking, can help address this. And of course, a robust regional transit system is critical to addressing congestion. As we heard at the joint committee meeting, the rating of the Portal Bridge project has been increased, making it eligible for federal funding. This is a critical project that must move forward to ensure real commuters have unimpeded access to New York City. But the bridge project alone is not enough. As chair, I will continue to support federal funding for the Gateway Tunnel. We need to add capacity and we need to ease congestion. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but I know we can do great things together. Before closing, I wanted to mention that I'm honored to be moderating panels at the NJ Transaction Conference next month. And I want to thank Freeholder Bartlett and Freeholder Kenny, who will also be leading sessions. The NJTPA helps coordinate this conference, and it's a great opportunity to showcase the work of our central staff and this board. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you. Any remarks from the NJDOT this morning?
No, thank you.
No? Thank you. And remarks from New Jersey Transit?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. With that, we'll hear Mary. I'm sure you have a report for us.
I do. Thank you. I'm pleased to report on a very productive 2 months under the leadership of our new chair, Freeholder DeFillippo, and our new executive committee members. I will start by thanking everyone who reviewed and commented on our draft Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, which will guide the work of central staff and the sub-regions in fiscal year 2021, beginning this July. We received valuable input on the UPWP, particularly from NJDOT and FHWA, as well as from the sub-regions, our citizens representative, and others. This has helped us clarify some of our work tasks and broaden others to better address important regional issues. Thanks in no small part to your input, in the coming year, you can expect to see important progress in developing our next long-range plan, implementing performance-based planning, and embracing new technologies. Regarding our overall work program, I should also note that the federally mandated single audit of our fiscal year 2019 UPWP was completed this past quarter, and today we're distributing the independent auditor's report to the board. We are very pleased to note that there were no findings or questioned costs, which means that we are fulfilling all requirements and accountability standards in our use of federal funding. On another note, I'd also like to thank Freeholder Bartlett for kicking off our first field visit for Up Next North Jersey, which is our new advisory group of young adults. The Freeholder welcomed the group to a tour of Patterson Museum and the Great Falls in Passaic County on Saturday, January 25th. The group shared their thoughts on how transit in North Jersey can be improved. Up Next is already giving us a better understanding of the millennial and Gen Z perspective on the future of our region, a viewpoint we absolutely need to inform our next long-range plan. Another Up Next session focusing on walking and biking will be held in Asbury Park on March 28th. We look forward to another successful event, and I want to thank Freeholder Arnone and the Monmouth County staff who will be joining us that day. In keeping with the priorities set by this board, we continue to work diligently to enhance our safety planning efforts. On February 13th, for instance, we were pleased to host a workshop on proven safety countermeasures organized by FHWA and NJDOT. The theme of the workshop was making our roads safer one countermeasure at a time. And that is also how we approach our local safety and high-risk rural roads programs. In one example of how these programs are succeeding, we noted that crashes were reduced by more than half, from 85 down to 42, in the 3 years after installation of a high-friction surface treatment on a Somerset County road compared to the 3 years before. That's an excellent result. Similar countermeasures have been funded around the region with similar positive results. We look forward to working with our partners and the subregions to continue this progress and to help finalize the state's strategic highway safety plan. Also in the area of safety, we're preparing the rollout of a number of street smart pedestrian safety campaigns this spring in municipalities that include Fairlawn, Fort Lee, Garwood, Highland Park, Homedale, and North Haledon. Work is also underway on our summer campaign at the Jersey Shore. More details to follow on that very soon. Continuing on the topic of safety, staff recently presented on road safety audits and on complete streets at the January New Jersey American Planning Association Conference. These are two areas where NJTPA has helped municipalities and counties improve local travel conditions, operations, and safety. We've had staff sharing their expertise in other areas too. On February 5th, staff presented at the State Transportation Innovation Council meeting on virtual public engagement initiatives that we've used and on our public engagement database, which I welcome everyone to use for your own efforts. Regarding our air quality planning, we just issued solicitations for our local mobility initiatives program, which supports local shuttles, and for our Transportation Clean Air Measures program, which supports partner agency projects that reduce harmful emissions and benefit air quality. The details are posted on our website, and a public information session will be held at the NJTPA on Thursday, March 12th at 10 a.m. for those interested in applying for funding. As always, there are a host of other activities that I could report on, but I will refer you instead to the Central Staff Highlights section in your board books. Of particular note, we've recently assisted in public information meetings for a number of local concept development and sub-regional studies, and we are making available demographic data to assist in reaching underserved communities in these efforts. Before closing, I should point out that you now have the latest update of our Board of Trustees handbook. It contains summary information on NJTPA's responsibilities and programs, and includes a contact list of board members and alternates, our bylaws, and other essential information. It is also available on the publication page of the NJTPA website. A few final announcements about upcoming events. Again, on March 12th, we're holding the information session on the Air Quality Grant Program solicitations. On the morning of March 20th, the Together North Jersey Forum and task forces will meet in New Brunswick. Tom Wright of the Regional Plan Association will be the keynote speaker there. On March 31st, here in this room, the NJDOT Division of Local Aid will hold a listening session, one in a series of sessions being held throughout New Jersey during March and April. They will answer questions and share information on local aid funded projects. On April 21st, there will be another safety summit in Trenton for the state strategic highway safety plan. And as the chair noted, the annual transaction conference will be held in Atlantic City on April 28th through 30th, and I hope to see you there. And that concludes my remark.
Thank you, Mary. Freeholder Bartlett, would you like to give your report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to report on the activities of the Project Prioritization Committee. At the February joint meeting, the committee considered 6 action items, 2 of which are on today's agenda. The first concerns approval of the fiscal year 2021 Freight Concept Development Program. This program advances regional and local freight initiatives that were identified through planning studies conducted by the NJTPA, its subregions, and other planning partners. As the chair noted, 2 existing freight concept development studies in Hackettstown and Dover are currently wrapping up. For the next round, 37 candidate freight projects were scored, ranked, and submitted to the subregions for review. Following input from the subregions, 2 projects were recommended to undergo concept development. They are the Berkshire Valley Road Truck Circulation Project in Roxbury, Morris County, and the Port Reading Secondary South Main Street Grade Crossing Elimination Project in Bound Brook, Somerset County. The committee recommended approval of the 2021 program, and this is listed as action item number 1 on today's agenda. Next, the committee considered 4 minor amendments to the fiscal year 2020 through 2023 Transportation Improvement Program as requested by the New Jersey Department of Transportation. Due to updated construction estimates, additional federal funding is needed for 2 projects. $24.29 million for the Route 72 Manahawkin Bay Bridges project in Ocean County, and $16.75 million for the Route 206 Doctors Way to Valley Road project in Somerset County. These costs can be covered while maintaining fiscal constraint through a shift in the funding schedule for construction of the Route 23, Route 80, and Route 46 interchange project in Passaic and Essex counties. In addition, federal funds previously allocated to the Route 171, Route 130 to Lincoln Avenue project in Middlesex County can be used because the project is now being fully funded with state resources. These 4 minor amendments are combined as action item number 2. Next, the committee considered a modification to add federal funds to the Route 206 Valley Road to Brown Avenue project, also requested by NJDOT. Additional phases of work must be programmed for the project, moving the beginning of construction from fiscal year 2021 to 2022. Funds are available in the Fiscal Constraint Bank to cover increased costs for right-of-way in fiscal year 2020, utilities in 2021, and construction in 2022 through 24. The committee approved this modification and no further action is required. The committee also approved the federally required annual financial plan updates for 3 projects. First, the update for the Route 3, Route 46 Valley Road and Notch Rifle Camp Road interchange project in Passaic County reflects a $48.7 million increase in the total project cost to $308.9 million. This increase is mainly due to construction change orders and a design change to include a full bridge replacement for the Route 46 bridge over Lower Notch Road. Next, the updated plan for the Route 72 Manahawkin Bay Bridges project in Ocean County reflects an increase of $21.29 million to $340.9 million, mainly due to increased utility relocations and updated cost estimates. Finally, the updated plan for the Route 206 project in Somerset County reflects an increase of $13.9 million to $452.8 million, also due to utility relocations and updated cost estimates. The committee approved these financial plan updates and no further action is required. Madam Chair, that concludes the Project Prioritization Committee report.
Thank you. May I have a, I'm sorry. Now we're going to consider the fiscal year 2021 Freight Concept Development Program studies. May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Ocean County will make the motion to approve.
Thank you.
Passaic seconds.
Thank you, Passaic. Any comments for from the board members? Any comments from members of the public on this item? Seeing none, Beverly, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Port Authority?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Yes.
We have 4 minor amendments to fiscal year 2020-23 transportation improvement programs as requested by the NJDOT. May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Sussex County, Josh Hertzberg, make the motion.
And a second?
Hunter County, Matt Holt, second.
Thank you. Any comments from the board?
If I may, Madam Chair, Ocean County would just like to thank this committee and the DOT and the prioritization for the work on the Route 72 bridge. Very important to the economy of Ocean County, and that project is ongoing, but we appreciate the continued support for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from member of the public on this item? Seeing none, Beverly, would you please call the roll?
Essex?
Yes.
Hudson?
Yes.
Hunterdon?
Yes.
Jersey City?
Yes.
Middlesex?
Yes.
Monmouth?
Yes.
Morris?
I'm sorry, did you say Morris?
Yes.
Yes.
Newark?
Yes.
Ocean?
Yes.
Passaic?
Yes.
Somerset?
Yes.
Sussex?
Yes.
Union?
Yes.
Warren?
Yes.
Governor's Office?
Yes.
NJDOT?
Yes.
NJ Transit?
Yes.
Port Authority?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you. Now I'll call on Freeholder John Kelly, Chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, to give the committee report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I am pleased to report on the activities of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. At the February Joint Committee meeting, the committee considered one action item: approval of the fiscal year 2021 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP. As Mary noted in her report, this document describes all regional transportation planning and related work being done by central staff, the sub-regions, and the Transportation Management Associations during the upcoming fiscal year, which begins July 1st. Drafts of the UPWP and the budget were distributed to the board, the RTAC, NJDOT, NJ Transit, and our federal partners in December for review and comment. In addition to the suggestions for enhancing or clarifying work tasks, as Mary noted, NJDOT commended the NJTPA for assessing the potential impacts of new technologies and on addressing civil rights requirements. The sub-regions were commended for efforts involving resiliency, trail networks and greenways, complete streets, electric vehicles, and safety. We thank the NJDOT for this feedback. Please note that there have been some changes to the UPWP since the initial draft. In particular, the budget revenue assumptions were revised to correctly reflect the balance of PL funding available from prior work programs. Also, a new subtask activity was added to assist NJDOT with data collection for the state's model inventory of roadway elements management system known as MIRE. The committee recommended board approval of the 2021 UPWP, which is listed as Action 3 on today's agenda. The committee also received an update on work underway to update our long-range transportation plan, which will have a horizon year of 2050. We are required to update our plan every 4 years, which means the board must adopt an updated plan by the fall of 2021. A lot of work has to be accomplished to get there, including public outreach around the region, special engagement efforts targeting underserved communities, forecasting and data analysis, development of a financial element, and more. In addition, central staff is preparing white papers on various key topics leading up to the plan. This means that over the next year and a half, all of us will have opportunities to think about and help shape the future of the region and members of the Planning and Economic Development Committee members will have an especially active role in guiding this regional planning process. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you. Now we're going to consider the fiscal year 2021 Unified Planning Work Program. May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion made, Union County.
Thank you, Union County. And a second?
Second by Ocean County.
Thank you, Ocean County. Any comments from the board members? Any comments from members of the public on this item? Seeing none, Beverly, would you please call the roll?
Essex,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Hunterdon,
Yes.
Jersey City,
Yes.
Middlesex,
Yes.
Monmouth,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Newark,
Yes.
Ocean,
Yes.
Passaic,
Yes.
Somerset,
Yes.
Sussex,
Yes.
Union,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Governor's Office,
Yes.
NJDOT,
Yes.
NJ Transit,
Yes.
Port Authority,
Yes.
motion is carried.
Thank you. And now I'll call on Freeholder Joshua Hertzberg, who is the Vice Chair of the Freight Initiative Committee. Joshua?
Yes, thank you. I'm pleased to give this report on behalf of Freeholder Charles Kenny, our chair. I'm pleased to report on the activities of the Freight Initiatives Committee. At the February meeting, central staff reported on 2 freight concept development studies you just approved as part of the Project Prioritization Committee action item. They are the Berkshire Valley Road Truck Circulation Project in Roxbury, Morris County, and the Port Reading Secondary South Main Street Grade Crossing Elimination Project in Bound Brook, Somerset County. Again, the Freight Concept Development Program advances regional and local freight initiatives that do not have a ready path toward implementation through other programs. I should note that the Freight Initiatives Committee previously approved the selection criteria which was used to evaluate and score the 37 projects that were candidates for this program. The list of projects was then submitted to the subregions for their review and input. I thank all those who helped with the selection process. In other business, central staff has begun work on updating freight aspects of the agency's long-range transportation plan, which Freeholder Kelly just mentioned. This includes identifying strategies to address truck parking issues, such as helping drivers comply with federal hours of service rules, allowing them to better stage local pickups and deliveries, and guiding them to safe emergency parking. In addition, as part of the outreach for the long-range plan, in January, NJTPA held a panel discussion featuring cross-section of private sector supply chain executives. These freight industry leaders shared their opinions on freight trends, issues, and priorities. I found the discussion very informative about the private sector's perspective, and I'm happy to note that several of our freight committee members attended. At our February committee meeting, results of the private sector panel were shared with the public agency representatives who added their own perspectives on freight issues. It was eye-opening to learn that the private and public sectors share many of the same concerns. All agreed that the region's economy is strong and that our freight sector benefits from serving a large and dense consumer market, that we are well served by our extensive port, air, and rail cargo facilities. It was also clear the region has benefited from major investments such as the raising of the Bayonne Bridge and widening of the New Jersey Turnpike. And there was also agreement about challenges we face: aging infrastructure, truck congestion at the port and our roadways, workforce shortages, and lack of last-mile job access for many, especially shift workers, at all the large warehouses and distribution centers. Participants identified the need for more and better public-private communication and collaboration, particularly related to the industrial development, infrastructure improvements, and regulatory policies. These also saw the importance of workforce development and improving transit options. The discussions were very valuable, and we look forward to working with all our partners in addressing the issues raised as part of our long-range planning. This concludes the Freight Initiatives Committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, as part of our ongoing planning for 2050 series, this is informing our next long-range transportation plan. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Andrea Friedman, who supervises electric vehicle programs at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. Andrea focuses on policy and program development, implementation of new initiatives, and electrification of the state fleet. Previously, Andrea was a founding member of the Department of Environmental Protection's Office of Climate and Energy, working at the intersection of climate change, clean energy, and clean transportation. Thank you for joining us today, Andrea.
Good morning. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I was scheduled to talk to you at the December meeting and had to cancel at the last minute because I was sick and had laryngitis. That was fortuitous because a lot has happened since mid-December. So I'm going to talk to you a little about the vehicle electrification initiatives at the DEP, some state policy and legislative action that has happened over the past couple of months that will influence the state, and some of the statewide initiatives. I want to say hello to my colleagues. I know you know this, but I say it every time I do a presentation. Vehicles cause air pollution, and that's why the Department of Environmental Protection is taking the lead on vehicle electrification in New Jersey. Nearly 75% of the nitrogen oxides that cause ozone come from transportation, and a quarter of the fine particulates come from the transportation sector. And together, those two pollutants cause asthma, emphysema, heart disease, premature death, and cancer. This is a major public health issue. And of course, transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gases, both in New Jersey and across the United States. Almost half of New Jersey's greenhouse gases are from the transportation sector. Electric vehicles are about 80% cleaner than gasoline vehicles, and that includes emissions from the power plants that charge the batteries. So if you walk away with one thing today, walk away with that. Electric vehicles are 80% cleaner than gasoline vehicles, including the power plants. A lot of times I hear, and I had the same question before I got into this field, aren't you just moving pollution from the tailpipe to the smokestack? And the answer is no. So I'm going to talk about a major state initiative, the Energy Master Plan, some major legislation that came out of the legislature and was signed by the governor in January that will affect the electric vehicle market, and a few of the tools that I highlight for local governments when I go to talk to them, when they're interested in preparing their towns for electric vehicles and electrifying their own fleets. I left a flyer on the back table that has links to all of the things that I will be talking about. I'm from Philadelphia. I talk as fast as people who live in New Jersey, so don't worry about writing things down. There's a flyer in the back. So the Energy Master Plan is the Murphy administration's roadmap for energy for the next 3 or so years. Is energy broadly defined? Energy production, distribution, heating, use for industrial, and transportation. And for the first time, the Energy Master Plan, which comes out about every 3 years, has a substantive section on transportation. The previous Energy Master Plans have had a couple of roughly vague paragraphs with a couple of roughly vague goals. The transportation section of this EMP is about 35 pages with real goals, real discussion, real milestones, real deadlines. One of the goals to meet the energy and greenhouse gas goals is nearly 100% electrification of the transportation sector by 2050. And what is pushing that is the EMP's goal of 100% clean energy by 2050 and meeting the targets of the Global Warming Response Act, which requires reduction in greenhouse gases of 80% below the 2006 baseline by 2050. Those are steep, steep reductions, and much of it will have to come from the transportation sector. The other major policy thing that happened in January is that the legislature passed and Governor Murphy signed an electric vehicle bill. It was Senate Bill 2252. It's an omnibus bill. I'm going to give you some of the highlights. The program that I think will move the market the most is it established a rebate program for electric vehicle purchases. New Jersey had a state sales tax exemption for the purchase of electric vehicles, but no rebate program. That was one of the most effective policy mechanisms that we've seen across the United States in terms of boosting EV sales, because electric vehicles are still more expensive than comparable gasoline vehicles. So here we're trying to bring them to parity. The rebate program will be run by the Board of Public Utilities. It will give car buyers up to $5,000 towards the purchase or lease of a new electric vehicle that is purchased and registered in New Jersey. There's higher rebate for cars with bigger batteries and longer ranges, smaller rebate for smaller batteries with shorter ranges and plug-in hybrids. This is going to be the big mover of the market over the next few years. This is a $300 million 10-year rebate program. And what is nice is that even though the program is not up and running, it is retroactive to January 17th. So any electric vehicle that was purchased on or after January 17th is eligible for a rebate. So the Board of Public Utilities will be rolling that out shortly in 2 phases. One phase is for consumers to get the rebate in the mail, and then the full phase will be dealers will provide the rebate at the time of purchase, and the dealers will apply for the rebate online. So look for this. This is a big deal. The legislation also gave BPU the authority to set up a rebate program for home charging stations. So we'll be looking for that as well. The legislation set aggressive goals for the number of electric vehicles on the road and for charging infrastructure. So by 2025, 330,000 electric vehicles on New Jersey's roadways. That is 10 times the number of electric vehicles on the road today in New Jersey. A goal of 2 million by 2035. For public charging stations, 400 public charging stations at, 400 public fast charging stations at 200 locations statewide by 2035, as well as the lower power level 2 stations that you see at supermarkets and outside of coffee shops. It set goals for charging stations at multifamily homes and also at hotels and motels. And it set requirements to electrify the state-owned fleet. So by the end of 2035, 6 years from now, 25% of state-owned light-duty non-emergency vehicles must be electric, and one of my roles is working to do that for DEP and working for my colleagues at other state agencies to determine what we need to do to electrify the state-owned fleet and put in the necessary charging infrastructure so that the state can lead by example. Some additional DEP tasks. By the end of this year, we are required to set goals for medium and heavy duty electric vehicles, both for vehicles and for charging infrastructure. We're required to enlarge our consumer education campaign, and we're required to develop a report on the state of the market and identify policy and legislative barriers to widespread adoption of electric vehicles. There's a lot more in the bill. These are, I think, are the highlights and the most important portions that are going to move the market the fastest and that are going to lead the state government to lead by example and also to be able to assist local governments in their efforts. Another change this year is that there are now electric vehicles on the state contract. This is a big barrier. Procurement is difficult, we all know. And so now there are 5 EVs on state contract. We have sedans, we have hatchbacks, we have pure electrics, we have plug-in hybrids, and a minivan. And so this makes procurement easier for state agency, but also for the other public entities that are eligible to purchase off of the state contracts. And that includes local governments and counties. There are other procurement tools that I talk to when I talk to local governments. This is another one, the Climate Mayor's EV Purchasing Collaborative. It is a collaborating purchasing initiative. They also developed an RFP and went through a procurement process that it will meet most government standards. So local governments can buy electric vehicles and charging stations off of this contract if the local procurement laws allow for that, and most do, because it was built for that purpose. The Board of Public Utilities this year launched a small incentive program to help local governments buy electric vehicles for their fleet. It's called the Clean Fleet EV Incentive Program. It gives $4,000 for a pure battery electric vehicle and some money for a charging station. The application deadline for that is April 15th. And vehicles must be purchased by the beginning of June. This is a pilot program. BPU hopes to continue this program into the future. This was established before the rebate program was set, so this may or may not continue based on how BPU sets up the rebate program. BPU is still setting up the program rules. The legislation gave BPU a great deal of discretion, so we don't know at this point whether the rebates will be just for individuals and families, or whether they will also be available for local governments and for government and corporate fleets. So that's something we will all be looking for as BPU rolls out the grant program. In the meantime, BPU has this smaller grant program to help local governments begin their transformation. DEP has a grant program called It Pays to Plug In. This helps lower the cost for charging stations, both for the purchase and installation and operation. We've run this program for about 4 years now, and thank you to NJTPA for approving our application for CMAQ funds for that program. It gives up to $6,000 per charging station, everywhere except individual family homes. So we're talking public places, workplaces, both for employees who drive their own EVs to work and also for fleet vehicles, multifamily homes, and electric shared mobility programs like electric car share or electric ride share. This year, we will be adding eligibility for DC fast chargers for some uses. This is a major change because these are major investments. They're very expensive, but they're important for public perception. About 90% of charging happens at home or at work. The public fast chargers are there for confidence and for longer trips. So even though most charging happens at home or at work, it is crucial that we get the public fast chargers out on the road to give confidence to drivers that no matter when they need a charge or where they need a charge, they will have it. And so that is one of the places we're focusing our energy at DEP is on deploying fast chargers. Look for that within the next month or two. You've probably heard of the Volkswagen settlement. This was $72.2 million that came to New Jersey as a result of a settlement with Volkswagen for their vehicle fraud. We have given out money for charging stations. In fact, this money, the $3.2 million, will double the number of non-residential charging stations in the state, which we're very excited about. The other priority for this pot of money is medium and heavy duty vehicles in environmental justice communities. So we have given money to NJ Transit for their first electric bus pilot for NJ Transit buses in Camden. Thank you to NJ Transit. Money to local governments for electric school buses, garbage trucks, to corporations for delivery trucks, and to the for port trucks and equipment, and airport ground source equipment. These are major sources of ozone and particulates in the areas that are most vulnerable with the people that are most vulnerable. And the Murphy administration has chosen to target this Volkswagen money early to provide electric vehicles in environmental justice communities so that the benefits of electrification go to everybody, not only to people who can afford to buy their own electric cars, which still are expensive. We will put out 2 more solicitations for Volkswagen funding. We expect the next one to go out within the next month or so. The priorities will be the same: electric vehicle charging infrastructure and electric medium and heavy duty vehicles in environmental justice communities. I always point out the the guidebook that was put together by NJTPA that helps guide municipalities in electric vehicle readiness, both for their own fleets and thinking through how to make their towns EV friendly. This is another new project for us. DEP has been tasked with identifying ways to speed the local approval process for charging infrastructure, especially for fast chargers. What we're hearing from the charging industry is that it is taking much longer to get local approvals for fast chargers here than in some other parts of the country. We think that much of that is just due to a lack of familiarity about what charging stations are, how much electricity is required, why they should be treated differently from buildings and gas stations and other uses. So we think that some of that may be some education, but other of it may be real barriers to doing things quickly, permitting quickly. So we have a certified planner working with us, and we're talking to local governments and to the industry and to folks across the country and to the planners to help understand if there's a way that we can help local governments move more smoothly through the permitting process, both to lighten the load on the local governments and to be able to get the charging infrastructure out there faster. So a few things to look for in 2020. As I mentioned, we're looking at the local approval process. BP will roll out their rebate program for electric vehicle purchases, and we will be looking to see whether local governments and fleets are eligible now or will be eligible within a year or two. We'll be putting out the solicitation for the Volkswagen settlement funding. We are doing strategic mapping and planning to determine what the best places are for charging infrastructure across the state. So expect us to roll out a map within the next month or so as part of an ongoing mapping process. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, our first auction will happen this month, and the strategic funding plan will come out in April. So Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative is a regional cap and trade program to reduce emissions from the electricity sector. It brings money to the state. The money is split between 3 state agencies, and the state is now formulating a spending plan for that money. It will be used to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and there is an interest in using some of that money for clean transportation. So we'll be keeping an eye out on what the government's plans are to allocate that money, how it will be used by the state agencies, and how it will be used for transportation electrification. So just quick, a couple useful websites if you'd like to poke around further. This is Drive Green, New Jersey. This is DEP's electric vehicle website. Drive Change, Drive Electric is supported financially by governments, but is not written by bureaucrats, so it's a little easier to read. And feel free to contact me. I have my card, and I would be happy to talk to anybody about your thoughts about EV readiness or electrifying your fleet or your planning efforts. And again, I put a flyer out on the back table with all of the links that are in here, and I'll be here until the end of the meeting. Feel free to come and take my card. Thank you very much. Any questions? We have time for questions? Yes.
I do have one question.
Yes.
If a local business wants to put a charger in,
Yes.
they permitted to charge the user for using that?
Yes, they are. In fact, we don't take a position on whether to provide free charging or not. It might be nice for local government, if they want to offer free charging, to buy a charger that can require payment. So if they see that their costs are more than they want to bear, they can then switch. So the network's chargers can be set up to allow free charging or to take payment for charging, and the local governments can, or businesses can set the rates just through the computer. Yes, yes.
I have 3 quick questions.
Yes.
Number 1, could you define an environmental justice community, and you shed any light on the plans to mitigate the environmental impact of battery disposal? Yes. And also from a budgetary standpoint, as all of us run our individual county budgets, what do you anticipate the cost of overall cost of operation for vehicles by comparison to current fossil fuel vehicles?
Good, yes.
What our budget should
Yes, so those are good questions, and I'll take the last one first. Electric vehicles are more expensive up front but over the life of the vehicle, they save money. And the reason is electricity costs about half of what gasoline or diesel costs. Exactly, per mile, cents per mile. And also because they save a lot of money in maintenance and operations. The vehicles are much simpler. They have fewer parts. They break down less. They require less ongoing maintenance and repair. So over the life of the vehicle, you're saving money on a cents per mile basis. Now, there's a big difference whether you're talking about light duty vehicles or medium duty and heavy duty. How fast will you earn back your investment? That really depends on the cost of the vehicle, on the type of the vehicle. So that was your first question. And the middle question, yeah, sure. Yes, please.
What about maintenance of those vehicles? Are government agencies that are using those training their staff, or are they farming it out to be maintained?
They could do either. They're under warranty, so just like any other car, for the first couple of years, they can use the dealership. If it's a plug-in hybrid vehicle, any maintenance worker who is trained to service regular hybrid vehicles can service the plug-in hybrids. For the all-electrics, they require additional certification. So they will need additional training, or they can farm that out. So the middle question, the first was environmental justice. Yes. So for now, we're using urban communities, low and moderate income urban communities. So Camden, Newark, Patterson. The state is due to put out guidance for Executive Order 23, I believe it is, on environmental justice, and we expect a fuller definition to come out along with that guidance for the executive order. In the meantime, we're saying to people who apply for our grant for project and environmental justice, you make the case to us, and it shouldn't be hard to make the case because we know what the communities are, where there are high emissions, a long history of environmental contamination, and low to moderate income and minority communities. And then the third question?
By the way, I appreciate that very much. I'd
Yes.
also urge you to take a look at the rural communities where your overall VMTs
Yes.
is very high.
Yes.
Therefore, if you want to have an impact, there is an equal impact to be had without question.
Right.
My last question was really, we are looking at the CO2 emission impact, sure.
Yes.
But what is the impact overall of battery disposal?
Oh, the battery disposal. That's a good question, and we don't know the answer yet. We're working regionally with our other state partners in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, working with a think tank to investigate those issues. What I can tell you up front is that when a battery is no longer suitable for a car, it still has a lot of energy in it. And energy is valuable, so those batteries are likely to be used. For example, they could be used by utilities for stationary battery storage. And they can be used as stationary batteries in other ways. So we think that that's one of the places that that's going to go because they are so valuable. We're also interested to see what's coming out of the study as far as battery recycling and disposal.
Hi, Andrea.
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. Really encouraging to see everything the state is doing. I have two questions. The
Yes.
first one is about the availability of electric vehicles in this region. So
Yes.
Jersey City has started to convert a lot of our municipal
Yes.
fleet to electric, and we've actually just launched a new on-demand transit service that has
I know.
higher occupancy.
I read about it. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we have a certain percentage of those that are electric, but have been hearing from our partners that there is a real limitation in terms of availability of those vehicles in the region currently.
Yes.
And we expect lots of delays because of the health concerns and parts coming in from China and things like that. So have you experienced that, and do you expect this legislation to affect that positively for there to be greater availability in this region to purchase?
I do. Availability has been one of the issues for consumers. The vehicles have been going to California and to other states that have stronger incentive programs. Now that the rebate has been passed, we expect to see more vehicles at dealerships in New Jersey because they know they're going to be able to sell them. So as an example, we did a presentation at NJCAR, which is the New Jersey Dealership Association. We were slated for a a 20-minute presentation, and we ended up having a group discussion with the dealers for well over an hour, almost an hour and a half. They had to cut us off. There's a lot of interest among the dealers now that they know there's a strong incentive that's going to bring people in the door, and they're interested in getting trained, getting certified to sell these, and understanding what people want. So for light duty vehicles, we absolutely expect this legislation to draw more vehicles to dealerships because now they know they can sell them. New Jersey now has the strongest incentive package in the country between the rebate and the sales tax incentive added to the federal incentive. So for light duty vehicles, I absolutely expect to see that and see that happen fast. For medium and heavy duty vehicles, that's a different story, and that's primarily because they are newer to the market and they're being built and piloted, and there's demand from the other leadership states. So I have less certainty about how quickly that market will grow. I have a good deal of certainty about light duty vehicles at dealerships.
So maybe that answers my next question, but I see that the way to be the most impactful with these policies is to make sure that we're electrifying our mass transit vehicles, transit buses, and things like that. So you
Yes.
mentioned that there were 8 buses in Camden.
Yes.
Does this policy or this legislation mandate additional electrification of New Jersey transit buses? And if that does happen, is it conversion of the existing fleet, or is it adding more capacity and making sure those vehicles are electric? You may not have.
So the answer is yes. Can you address that? Good, because I don't remember the numbers. The answer is yes.
The answer is yes, and there is a specified step up over a number of years for a new vehicle purchase.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And I fully agree with you in terms of impact, but I want to be sure that it is clear that there is some level of participation that is afforded to the rural communities who don't have mass transportation available to them.
Yes.
There is an impact there. This is a distribution of funds that was statewide. We need to make sure that as half this board is representing rural areas, that there is some focus spent on those areas to say that we have an impact. We just as much we should be participating in this program as well.
Yes, I agree with you. And some of the solutions that work in urban areas don't work in rural areas. We've been in discussions with some of our partner states in the Northeast, with some of the more rural states like Vermont, to see what they're doing to bring electrification to their state in a way that serves the rural communities as well. Thank you for that. So, thank you very much. Oh, one more question, and I think I should. No.
It's a major problem I see with the a major problem that I see with the energy management plan is it totally ignored electric rail. We already have 300,000 riders on electric rail today, but it's faced savage cuts on my line where Kathy DeFillippo lives in Morris County. 22 train stops a day have been cut. Now, it seems to me like that would be a very good way to make an investment. We have another 50,000 existing rail riders on diesel rail, which should be electrified. And we've calculated, NJARP members, Justine McCurshey, that you could electrify our existing diesel for $300 million. So I think that has to be considered, because not only is it electric, but it achieves all our goals. It gets people out of their cars, less congestion, less roads to maintain. The train stations are already main streets, and we're already having transit-oriented development. So then you have walkable, bikeable communities. And I was really shocked that was not in the energy management plan. I hope that the DEP will consider that. I know that's not what your task is, but okay.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I think what we can look at in the Energy Master Plan is the recognition that to meet the pollution goals, the clean air goals, and to meet the climate goals, we will need to electrify nearly 100% of the transportation sector broadly defined by 2050. And rail and freight is something that we're going to need to look at, and there are big payoffs, as you mentioned. So thank you very much. Do I have time for more questions?
For the board, yes.
Okay, yes.
So, on the topic of rail and rural communities, has there been any talk in the plan about expanding electric rail into the rural communities? We've had a project on the books for 20 years that can't get finished to expand rail to Sussex County.
That's a good question, and I don't know who would answer that. So as the Department of Environmental Protection, we don't have jurisdiction over that, although we certainly encourage it and would support it and would work with our sister agencies to see that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Any more questions from the board? You know, I'm going to break a rule here, and for the benefit, if there's anyone in the public who has a specific question for our speaker, we'll let you ask one brief question. Is there anyone else who had a question?
Neil, over on the side.
In the corner?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Short questions.
Yes.
What will be the total price of the EV rebate program and the charging stations?
Yes.
Number two, will these charging stations also be compatible to charge e-bikes?
Okay. The first question, what will be the total price of the rebate program? And the charging. The rebate program is for vehicles. That is a $300 million program, and that's in the legislation. So $30 million a year, every year for 10 years. The bill did not speak to funding for charging stations. So we are using a variety of funding sources. We're using funding from the Volkswagen settlement, from other environmental settlements, from federal grants like the congestion mitigation and air quality grants. We got CMAQ grants from all 3 MPOs for charging infrastructure. The bill gave the Board of Public Utilities the discretion to consider using money from the Clean Energy Fund for electric vehicles and charging stations. So to answer how much money will the state be allocating to charging stations, I don't know. How much money will be allocated for rebates to help people buy vehicles? $300 million over 10 years. For electric bikes, I don't know the answer to that. The priority for the charging station has been for light-duty vehicles, and moving forward, medium and heavy-duty vehicles because they're the heavy polluters. I don't know enough about electric bikes to know how these charging stations could be configured to charge them. I do know that the bikes can be plugged into regular outlets. And so that might be the answer, at least in the shorter term, is that bikes, like all electric cars, can be plugged into a regular old house outlet or garage outlet or an outlet like they're, in this room, and they can be charged up.
Thank you. Any additional questions? With that, I want to thank Andrea
Thank you
for
very
being
much.
here today. Now we will turn to the general public participation section of our meeting. And as a reminder, we advise members of the public that you have a 3-minute time limit on comments. The light on the timer will go from green to yellow when there is 30 seconds remaining, and then red when 3 minutes is reached. We ask that you keep your comments within the allotted time. And with that, I welcome comments from the public. Anyone already?
All right. Chair DeFillippo, Director of Meeting Trustees, thank you.
Sorry, could you speak into the microphone?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Neil Weissman. And I apologize for my extended absence, but I will take 3 minutes to try to catch you up on what's been going on. Last May, I spoke before you, and I contrasted London's aggressive investment in bike infrastructure with the Port Authority's plans to restore the George Washington Bridge path as walkways. Today, New York has issued an alert to commute where possible off hours and to walk or bike to avoid subways. Longer term, and New York is going to be grateful for every penny it put into its bike grid, I promise you. Longer term, congestion pricing will induce motorists to adopt e-bikes and scooters, and plans to rehab the Hudson Rail tunnels on weekends will push travelers onto the GWB paths at times they're already overcrowded. In September, On the occasion of the UN Climate March, I called upon the PA to reevaluate its $30 billion commitment to upgrade the region's airports. I hadn't anticipated that a pandemic would devastate the industry, but that further calls that commitment into question. In October, I called upon the agency to work with air travels to accelerate adoption of protocols to quantify the emissions from air travel. In November, I called on them to implement a European-style eco-tax on air travel to generate funding for mass transit. In December, I complimented the agency on opening the bikeway across the Bayonne Bridge, but urged them to get their overall bike policy in order. This week, the Goethals path opened, so I'm planning a trip to Santio's Pizza in Elizabeth. In February, I asked the agency, the Port Authority, to consider issuing a portion of its overall capital debt as green bonds. I cited Transportation for London's 2015 issue of $600 million to finance rail and station upgrades, purchase of hybrid buses, and expansion of its bike grid. Essentially, these forms of investments have a categorical inclusion as green. Benefits to the Port Authority include helping it diversify its pool of investors into Europe and Asia, where demand for taxable municipal debt is rapidly growing, but where environmental, societal, and governance investing, or ESG, is dominant. Also, by assembling a portfolio of green transportation projects and committing to expand it over time, the agency insulates itself against a credit downgrade as rating agencies increasingly factor ESG criteria into their assessment of municipal borrowers, which I believe includes everyone at this table. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Chairwoman, can I ask just a few questions to Neil Barca over here?
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Neil. I just want to thank you and recognize your advocacy for this project. I know you've been doing this for a while, and I just have a few questions. You may not have the answer, but I just want to be educated on the project. So how long have you been asking for these changes and specifically appearing before this board?
I've been speaking before the Port Authority since 2013. Before this board, 2016.
Okay. And do you know at what stage the project is now, the Restore the George project?
I'll certainly defer to the representative from Port Authority. They're in the midst of the project now. They're rehabbing the north path. They're restringing the cables. They're expanding the entrances on both the east and west sides to their modern AASHTO compliant facilities. But the main paths, the mile-long things, are still being restored to a pedestrian standard. And the design drawings for the path have the words "bridge walk" over the entrance. So I think, walks like a duck. It, sounds like a duck, so I think it's going to be a duck.
And do you know how wide the bike ped path is?
The 6 foot 9 inches between the cables, which are every 66 feet.
The 6 foot 9 inches combined for pedestrians and cyclists.
There's going to be one there.
Direction?
There's going to be the south eventually by 2020. Okay, in 2021, and again I defer to the Port Authority on this one. In 2021, the north path will open, and that will have a single 6 foot 9 path for pedestrians, runners, and cyclists for 3 years until the south path opens. But at this point, the north path, the current facility is already overcrowded. 3,700 cyclists a day as of 2015. New York's bike grid has tripled since then. There's no, and this is the sole connector between 10 million residents between North Jersey and New York City.
Do you know how many vehicles the bridge is anticipated to carry? You said
Cars.
3,700 cyclists.
3,700 cyclists plus another 25% pedestrians during peak periods. I'm talking peak use. I don't, Port Authority has the counters, but that's an F-rated facility now. So the idea is, people are an F-rated facility people avoid during peak use. So it's not surprised that it may not be growing.
Okay. And last question, what role do you think this agency can have, I guess, what is the ask from us? Can we be helpful, or if not this board, then
I would say very simply make a statement saying this is important. It's important to transportation throughout the region. you know, if, I think that the international numbers are huge, something like if we could get the world up to a 15% bike share mode, that knocks 10% off the total world's emissions and saves something like $21 trillion over 35. The numbers are ridiculous, but it's the the least expensive way to reduce emissions from transportations is to reduce vehicle miles traveled, and that means building a real bike grid, and that means every county. By the way, I love what Somerset did. I just love what Somerset did. But if every one of you guys could put together a real bike share plan for your, for your counties and hook it up to the George, that would be a different world.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Hello, Tim Sevener from the Transit Village of Mount Tabor, representing the New Jersey Association of Rail Passengers. And there was some good news that just came out when we're talking about restoring rail and hopefully in the future it being electric. Pennsylvania did a study and they found that restoring the Lackawanna cutoff, the viaducts and the bridges, they're in much better shape than thought, that would only cost $280 million. Previously, it was thought to be $500 million. So our previous people that were concerned about I-80 traffic, Len Resto told me at our board meeting that he's talked to people in Stroudsburg, 37% of them work in Morris County. So they drive across the Delaware Water Gap every weekday. So we should start looking at that project again, and I agree totally with Sussex County. It's way past time to restore the NYS&W that can go all the way to Warwick, New York. The tracks are there, let's use them. And electrify it too, and as I've said before, it should be solar, renewable electric. But another thing, which is very exciting, you guys are talking about freight and passenger, is Virginia. You probably know this, Mary. Virginia, VRE and CSX made a major public-private partnership between the freight rail, of course we know a lot of our rail lines are freight, and passenger rail, and they're investing like $3.7 billion. They're going to expand Amtrak, they're going to double the tracks to go across Virginia to Washington, D.C. It is a really big deal. And the thing is that this is the kind of public-private partnership we need because it benefits both. Virginia will get, they estimated that they're going to save, like it would have cost them $7 billion in highway widening and spending and $3 billion to get this combined deal to increase rail and freight together, working with CSX. And I gave you guys, you should have a copy of that article. And then finally, there's one other thing I'd like to suggest that one of my peace activists suggested a long time ago. I think this is possible to really get the data. Just give me 1 minute here. We already know where you live and where you work from your W-2. Now, I know that data is private. You can't use the data individually. However, what you could do is mask that data and we could know where everybody lives and works. And that really helps your transportation planning. Mask the data, no individual personal data in there, but you know this is where they live, where they work, so this is where we really want to help them get to work. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, and I thank you for your comments today. Our next meeting will be here in this room on May 11th at 10:30. And may I have a motion to adjourn?
Chair.
Sorry, who?
Could I have 10 seconds?
Thank you. And second?
By the way, in Holt time is 20. 2 quick comments. I was not able to be here at the January meeting. I wanted to very much congratulate you on the chairmanship and also the entire executive board. It's tremendously exciting to see the group of people that are going to be running this organization, representing us. Congratulations to all. And secondly, I'm very, very excited to have my colleague, Zach Rich, with me today. Zach is our alternate, and to have another member of our board truly excited about this organization. Freeholder Bartlett, he is going to be on the PPC committee, and I request and I know that you will be as kind to him as you have been to me and the staff as well in terms of bringing him up to speed. He is the future not only of Hunterdon County, but he is the future of representation here on this board. Thank you very much, and Mr. Rich, thank you for being here today with us. Thank you, Chair.
I want to comment, Freeholder Holtz, you have been an integral part of training just for me from the day I started on the board. You will be sorely missed.
I'm not going anywhere for a while, but when it happens, I'll let you know.
Okay. So we have a while before you're actually going to look. Okay.
Thank you.
But I like that you're working on transitions. With that, I think we had both motions, so we'll adjourn. Thank you.